Hello and welcome back. If you're new to my channel, I make videos about paring down and living with what is currently a 50-item wardrobe. And today I want to talk about shopping. So we're getting into fall, at least here in the Northern Hemisphere. It's getting cooler, and this is typically a time, the beginning of the season, when I think about shopping and what I might want to add to my wardrobe to prepare myself for the coming season. So today I thought I would share my techniques for how I avoid shopping much of the time, how I keep shopping under control whenever I do need to shop, and finally, how I keep my wardrobe feeling fresh even when I'm not constantly adding to it. I've had a couple of comments from people asking about how I deal with the psychological effects of having a smaller wardrobe, how I feel about wearing my items of clothing in heavier rotation, and just generally how to keep it feeling fresh. So I'm going to talk about that topic later on in the video, but first, let's talk about shopping. Real quickly, I want to dispel the idea that having and maintaining a small wardrobe means never shopping again. To me, that's not practical or realistic or frankly fun. Do I think many of us probably need to do some work to cultivate a different relationship toward shopping than we might already have? Absolutely. So if you've managed to not try having a shopping fast until now, I really recommend you do it. Designate a specific amount of time to not shop and then try to stick with it. Even if you're not really successful at not shopping during that shopping fast, I think it helps us to be mindful about our shopping habits, and we can reflect and learn about ourselves and what triggers us to shop. Other things you can do that I've done that I found really effective are keeping myself out of the context of shopping. So I've unsubscribed from a lot of email advertisements that I used to be bombarded with constantly. There were just a giant parade of items that I didn't actually need. I also don't go to shops or the mall or browse online whenever I'm not looking for a specific item, and that's helped me to avoid a lot of purchases. So if you haven't already started to reevaluate or try to change your relationship to shopping, I really recommend you do. I think that that's necessary and critical for maintaining a small wardrobe, but I don't think it's realistic to think that we're never going to shop again. So when you do actually need to shop, here are a couple of the strategies that I find really effective. My first strategy for successful shopping is to make all purchasing decisions begin in my closet, not in a store. So what I mean by that is anytime there's an item I want to buy, it's because I've identified either a gap in my wardrobe and a new item that I want to bring into my wardrobe, or I've identified an item in my existing wardrobe that I want to replace. I'm not just browsing through a store and letting myself be tempted by whatever they have on offer. Instead, all of my purchasing decisions start with my wardrobe, and I think that that's been really good at helping me to lay the groundwork for a plan on what to buy. So it helps me to identify the types of items or type of item I would want to buy, as well as get an understanding for how that item would fit into my existing wardrobe. Once I've identified a shopping need, my next step is to make a shopping list and be incredibly specific about the qualities of the item that I want to buy. So I'll give you an example. I've shown in previous videos this guy. He is a navy crew neck, heavy, bulky knit sweater. I decided that I wanted to replace it, and so I got very specific about the qualities of the sweater that I wanted to replace it with. First of all, I just did decide that I wanted it to be a sweater. I like having a navy sweater in rotation, so I knew I wanted it to be another navy sweater, but I went even further than that. I wanted it to be less bulky, and so I decided that I wanted it to be cashmere, which is incredibly warm without all the bulk. I also decided that I wanted it to be V-neck, which is a more flattering cut on me. I also think cashmere is more flattering because it's not as chunky. So right there, I had a lot of attributes that I was looking for. I defined that I wanted it to be a navy, cashmere, V-neck, drapey, nice sweater. So as much as you can, be very specific about the qualities of the item that you want to purchase. Once I've identified a need and defined what I want to go out and look for, I then of course start the shopping process, but because I've been very specific with my shopping list and the qualities of the item that I want to purchase, it makes shopping very easy because I can hone in on things that check all of the attributes that I've already defined. So once you find the item, my next tip is to walk away. which I know can be very hard, especially whenever you've gone through this process and you've already really figured out, pinpointed what it is that you want, I still really recommend that you walk away, and especially get out of the store. Give yourself a couple of days or a couple of weeks or a couple of months even if you can. Depending on sort of the severity of the need of the purchase, you may or might not be able to do that. But if you can, I really recommend it. When I've done this, it's helped me to realize that even after so much planning, oftentimes I can completely forget about an item that I was able to find. Sometimes not, but sometimes I can forget about an item that I found that checked all of those boxes, which for me means that I'm better off not having purchased that to begin with. Other times I'll notice that I do keep coming back to that item. If I continue to think about it, if I continue to go visit it in a store or visit it online, then I think I can make that purchase and be more assured that it's not an impulse decision. It is something that actually checks all my requirements and is something that I want and need and has a purpose in my wardrobe. So going back to the example of the navy sweater, I went on the hunt for its replacement. I spent, I think, probably about 2 months, at least a month, determining what out there in the market I wanted to buy to be its replacement. And honestly, I could have probably delayed this purchase even longer because it's just now starting to get cool here, but I really wanted to swap it out anyway. I went on the hunt for its replacement, and what I found is this. It actually is navy. It's more navy in sunlight. It's very dark navy. I think Everlane actually calls it dark navy. But I found this whenever I was in New York at the Everlane showroom. It's an incredibly dark, saturated, which if you are familiar with my videos, you know I really like, navy color. It's made of 100% cashmere. I can't really speak to its launderability because I haven't worn it, let alone washed it yet, but it's a lot less bulky. It's loads more flattering on, and so now I can part with my previous navy sweater because I found its replacement that really does check all of my boxes and is much nicer. It's worth parting with the other sweater for. Now for me, the shopping process continues, or my sort of smart shopping strategies continue even after I've made a purchase. So after I purchase an item, the next thing I like to do is have a little fashion show for myself. And this tip I actually learned from another YouTube video, but I think it's really useful to, once I make a purchase, try it on with other items of clothing that I have in my closet. Make sure that I have other things to wear it with and that it fits nicely into my closet. Another thing that I like to do, because seeing all of my clothes lined up and be cohesive is so important to me, is before I take the tags off of an item, I leave it in my closet just hanging where I would otherwise organize it and store it in relation to all the other clothes, and look at it for a couple of days in relationship to the rest of the clothing that I have to determine if I think that it's cohesive. I know that one might be a little bit nuts, but that's important to me, so I continue to really evaluate an item of clothing even after I buy it. My final tip is don't add, replace or upgrade. So now when I shop, I operate on a one in, one out policy. I don't buy something unless I evaluate my current wardrobe and identify an item that I would get rid of in order to make room for that new thing. So because I'm already to a place with my wardrobe where I love everything in my wardrobe, all of my purchasing decisions are incredibly thought out. I spend a lot of time evaluating new purchases because it means that I have to part with something that I already love in order to make room for that new item. Those are all of my shopping strategies, and so I want to move on to how I keep my wardrobe feeling fresh even whenever I'm able to successfully avoid purchases most of the time. So some people have asked how I deal with the psychological effects of having a limited number of items in rotation, and generally how I keep that fresh. So one way I do this is that I've really embraced my uniforms. If you've seen my curated wardrobe video, you'll know that I've spent a lot of time and thought building a wardrobe for myself that I think looks good on me and that I feel great in. I think for just about everybody out there, there's lots of clothing where we're either going to look like fine to good, but are we really wearing the things that we love and that we feel great in? For myself, a while ago, the answer was no, and so I spent a lot of time defining the things that I knew I would look and feel great in, and now those are all of the things that I own. I have not in the last 3 months of owning 50 items of clothing ever once opened my closet door and thought I have nothing to wear. That just hasn't happened. Another thing you can do to keep it fresh, which I'm not very good at least right now, is layering. Now, I think I'm definitely in the minority on my sort of non-layering preferences, but something that I know a lot of other minimalists out there do, and do to sort of extend the versatility of their small wardrobes, is to become very proficient at layering, which requires, I think, having sort of lighter clothing, less bulky clothing, so that you can sort of pile it on and create different looks without it feeling too constraining. Another thing you can do is have fun with accessories. Again, that's something I'm not terribly good at, but one way that I am kind of good at it is by swapping out shoes. So if you're like me and you don't have a ton of jewelry or a ton of scarves or a ton of accessories, I think just changing up the shoes that we're so used to grabbing can be a really effective way to change up the look of an outfit. Now, if you're very experimental, I remember watching a video by Jenny Mustard, who, if you're not familiar with her, she has very sort of experimental, avant-garde style. It's not something that I am at all brave enough, nor have really the inclination to wear, but she looks great in it. And she made a video, if I can find it, I'll pop it down below, where she talked about the techniques that she uses to really mix up and change the look of her clothing without actually tailoring or altering it. So I remember she talked about sort of twisting up the straps of a sleeveless top or wearing shirts backwards. For many of us, that may be too out there, which, like, kudos to you if you actually try it. I actually kind of want to try the wearing a shirt backwards, especially a button up. I think that could look great. But I think a way that we can sort of dip our toes into something like that is to roll up the hem of your pants, or roll up the sleeves of your top, or tuck or untuck a shirt, depending on what you're used to. I think little changes like that can really start to help us think about our clothing in different ways and explore ways to wear the clothing that we have in ways that we haven't considered. The last way to keep things fresh that I want to talk about is having a micro capsule wardrobe, or a flexible capsule wardrobe, I've heard some people call it. So what do I mean by that? What's a micro capsule wardrobe? Well, nothing. I just made that up, but I think it can be useful. I'm somebody who likes to see all of the clothing that I own at a glance, but I'm actually thinking about changing that, because especially as the seasons change, I think there can be some value in the sense of novelty you get from opening up a box of clothes that you haven't seen since 6 months ago, or whenever you packed those items away. So especially if you want to sort of minimize the clothing that you have on view and you like the idea of only seeing seasonally appropriate things, packing away things that are out of season, I think can help to generate that feeling of novelty, because you don't see it and then you do, and it's like a surprise all over again, and you didn't have to do any shopping. Another capsule wardrobe technique that I think can be really useful here, again, for sort of keeping it fresh and keeping it feeling novel even if you're not shopping a lot, is what I already mentioned, the sort of flexible capsule wardrobe, I believe it's called. The woman who makes the videos on the channel, Use Less. This is how she uses capsule wardrobe. She has a core closet of basics that she keeps out all year round, and then every season she'll add, I'm gonna guess, like 5 to 10 pieces that are seasonally appropriate or sort of on trend with trends that she wants to follow. But for the most part, she's keeping her wardrobe simple, and then she adds in seasonally appropriate items, which again, sort of I think helps keep it fresh, maintains that feeling of novelty. So even if you have a very small wardrobe, I think those are a couple of ways that you can continue to maintain a small wardrobe, not buy anything, and still have that feeling of novelty and freshness. All right, today you got not one, but 2 lists from me: how to make responsible shopping decisions, as well as how to keep things fresh without shopping. I hope you're okay with both of those being mashed up into the same video, but I do think they're related. It's like 2 sides of the same coin, and so I think that information can be important to present together. But that's all for me today. As always, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time.